And joining us now is Mark Regev. He is a senior advisor to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Mark, thanks very much for being with us. Can you help us understand why Israel struck the refugee camp again, if you were able to, as Israel says, successfully take out the Hamas commander Ibrahim Biari the first time? What was this specific goal?
I can't go into each and every operation specifically, other than to say what you know to be true, that underneath the refugee camp, there is an elaborate system of tunnels, fortifications, command posts, arms depots, missile launching sites, which are an integral part of the Hamas military machine. And we are out to destroy that military machine. We saw what sort of violence it could inflict on our people. We see it in the missiles that they are daily firing into Israeli cities. We see that we saw that on October 7th with the terrible massacre, the atrocious murders, the horrific violence, the beheadings, the rapes, the burning of people alive that Hamas did when they invaded our country. So for all those reasons, we're acting now to take apart, to dismantle Hamas's military structure, and those tunnels are part of that.
Mark, you told our colleague Caitlin Collins last night, quote, if we need to attack it again, we will attack it again. If you have all that intelligence that you just described to us, you knew that, for example, Ibrahim Biari was there. What does Israeli intelligence tell you about how many civilians are still in that refugee camp right now, as you make the calculation on proportionality in these strikes?
So we can discuss proportionality separately, but the truth is, over the last 2 weeks, the overwhelming majority of the civilian population has in fact voted with their feet, has taken heed to our advice, and has moved out of what everyone knows will be a combat zone. Because let's be frank, the people of Gaza, though they might not be able to say so live on CNN because they face consequences if they speak out of turn or speak out against Hamas, but they know what's underneath them. They might not know the details, but they know that Hamas has built elaborate military structure underneath their homes.
Are you saying that those refugees that are still there just want to stay there and just don't want to leave? And the UN has called it impossible for everyone to leave. I'm saying the good news is the overwhelming majority of people have already left, and there's only a minority of civilians who have stayed because they heeded our advice. And those still there, we urge them they should move out of a combat zone. It's common sense. We still, though, and I want to stress this point, we still, in a difficult combat situation, will continue to make a maximum effort to differentiate between civilians and between the Hamas terrorists who are our enemies, and we will fight them. We don't want to see innocent civilians caught up in the crossfire, and we urge people who can still move to move. We understand that not everyone can, and we will make a maximum effort to differentiate, as I just said. But Hamas will be destroyed. We will take apart its military machine.
Mr. Ambassador, that maximum effort is something the White House, the Secretary of State, who's now shortly will be heading back to Israel, have asked for repeatedly. I want to ask you about something the president said last night. He was interrupted at a fundraiser by a protester who asked him to call for a ceasefire. He said he supported a humanitarian pause, but he also said this: I'm the guy who convinced Bibi to call for a ceasefire to let the prisoners out. I'm the guy that talked to Sisi to convince him to open the door, referring to the prime minister who you advise, as well as the Egyptian president. Do you know what he's talking about here?
I do, and I can't obviously go into all the confidential conversations between the United States and Israel. I can say this, if we want to talk about a ceasefire, that when they attacked us brutally on October 7th, when they butchered our people, when they machine gunned the young concert goers who were at that outdoor musical festival, that happened on a ceasefire. They broke the ceasefire when they attacked us. And so now that we're hitting them back, they say we want a ceasefire again? No. They broke the ceasefire when they attacked us. We are responding. We refuse, and I think if you were in our position, you would understand us very well. We refuse to go back to the reality of October 7th at 6 a.m. in the morning, where we live next to this terror enclave with ISIS-type terrorists who just want to kill our people. That will no longer be the reality. We will end Hamas's ability to inflict the sort of horrific violence that we saw just 3 weeks ago.
I understand not wanting to read out private conversations, very familiar with it, but that recitation that you heard from the president, does that track with reality, truth, based on what you know about those conversations?
I know that Israel and the US are both democratic countries. I know that Israel and the US both pursue our military conflicts when we need to fight in accordance with international law. And I know both the US and Israel want to differentiate between Gaza's civilians and between the Hamas terrorists. We target the terrorists, and we are making a maximum effort to see civilians move out of harm's way.
Ambassador Mark Regev, thank you for joining us this morning.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.